And all right, what is up, amazings? Welcome back to another discussion of WandaVision. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a comment on the channel, let us know your thoughts, let us know what you think is going on and what's to come next. So, Amber, how are you feeling over there?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling kind of vindicated because we were right about everything. And you?
Yeah. Yeah, this was definitely I mean, I've been waiting for some action, so I was a little bit disappointed, but other than that, I was glad that they revealed everything, that we've been saying about what Agatha, about, just a lot of stuff that went on in this episode. It was good. It was a good episode. I just wish that was action, but I guess they're saving all of the action for the grand finale, which I'm like, okay, this better be one heck of a finale for you to save all the fighting scenes for the last episode. I'm like, okay, you know, but
Uh-huh.
this just better be something, because I mean, you got what? You got Monica Rambeau, you got the real Vision. Well, I can't even say the real Vision, but you got Vision, then you got the evil Vision, then you got Pietro, then you got Agatha, then you got the kids. Like,
Mhm.
this better be some top level fighting for you to have saved it all the way to the end. So I'm just, they got to come through. That's all I'm saying. They got to come all the way through. So
Just just don't be disappointed when it ends on a cliffhanger because it definitely will. I feel.
oh snap! Come on, they can't do that to us. They cannot do that to us, yo. They can't be giving us no cliffhangers like that. That's gonna be messed up. I mean, the only thing you got left, what is the multiverse of madness? I guess it's come up. I mean, I guess it could save some stuff for there, but I don't know. Was this supposed to be multiple seasons? Did you hear anything about this being more than one season?
No, I heard only one season for this.
I mean, you know what? I could see them branching off into other shows, maybe that they haven't announced, maybe because they were wanting to keep them secret. Especially with if you think about what Monica Rambeau, that was something they definitely wanted to keep secret because they didn't want us to know that she was going to get her powers. That would have been a major spoiler. So we may end up getting a Monica Rambeau series or some sort of I know that Netflix had a Agents of Shield. Maybe we'll get something like Agents of Sword, not necessarily Agents of Sword, but like something where it kind of continues the whole story of what's happening now that Wanda has basically created, in a sense, the first mutant, and we may see them what's happening now that Sword has the power to create sentient weapons and things like that. I could see them doing a series based off of that, and just kind of the whole emergence of how the government is dealing with these mutant creatures and dealing with these superhumans. So I don't know. That, of course, that's just mere speculation, but I could see them branching off a lot of shows, or at least a series that kind of preps up for what's about to happen next in the movies.
Yeah.
From this series, but anyway, besides the speculation, let's hop into this episode. So I mean, we had so much going on here, and I'm just gonna pull this up so we can go through this piece by piece. So we start with a throwback to what I think it was 1649, I believe it, or 1690. Let me see, what was the exact date? 1693. 1693 in Salem, Massachusetts. And we have Agatha basically on trial. She's on trial with her witch coven, and she's basically being tried for breaking the rules of her coven, whatever that was, for accessing dark magic so dark that it was forbidden. And not, I don't think that was just forbidden, but they said it was beyond her age and beyond her rank, so she
Uh-huh.
wasn't allowed to access this type of magic. So we see her surrounded by what looks like one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, I think eight, 7 or 8 witches. Let me make sure I'm counting right. Here we go. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Yeah, 8 witches. I don't know if that's anything, but we see her on trial, and she's, basically they're saying, "Are you a witch?" And she's like, "Yes, I am." Blah blah blah. I don't know. What did you think of this scene right here? Because I don't know a lot about Agatha from the comics, but I don't know. It
Okay.
was interesting.
Yeah. Well, with me knowing nothing about her in the comics, it was definitely interesting. And, there was a lot of uh, Easter egg kind of things just for how they decided to do the whole classic witch burning, first going with the whole, are you a witch? And then her having to confirm that to her fellow witches. I was like, oh, Disney, you guys are so funny. And then they made it even more interesting because, she had practiced dark magic, magic not being a good thing in the first place. But that's why we're watching WandaVision. We want to see, like what does this mean for their world? Um, and and it shows like Agatha's disobedience, um, and and then as we went throughout the whole thing about her mother telling her like enough of the deception. She's we kind of see that she's like kind of a psycho, and she just like kind of shows her true self. And it was also like really crazy when when she it did seem like she was absorbing their powers, because every time they hit her she got more powerful, and you could actually see like her transforming, like the color,
Yeah.
and all that other stuff, like of the power coming from the other witches. So there was a lot that they were doing in that very short scene.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really Yeah, that was really interesting because, like you were saying, when she was getting shot with the energy, we saw kind of inside her throat there was kind of like this red energy, which is reminiscent of course, Wanda's powers. And we see as they're shooting this blue energy into her, and it's reacting with the red energy inside of her throat or whatever, that it becomes purple. And of course, her magic now in the series is purple. But that's interesting because I'm wondering, is she somehow accessing the same dimension of magic as Wanda at this point? And maybe that's why a little later she says, she starts talking about chaos magic and
Mm-hmm.
things like this as she knows about it, because it was very surprising that when she saw Wanda get basically accepted or chosen by the Infinity Stone, that wasn't surprising to her. Like she said, "Oh, so you got your powers amplified by an Infinity Stone," like it was just, "Oh, that's nothing unusual." So that was like a very throwaway statement for something of that scale. Like, the Infinity Stones have a lot of power. I mean, just one
Yeah.
Infinity Stone is like enough to, become basically like a god. But
Uh-huh.
she just said it like it was nothing. So I'm
And they were
like,
scattered throughout the galaxy too. There were just a couple on
right,
Earth.
yeah. So I'm like, she, what is her connection to the Infinity Stones? What's her connection to this stuff? Because it wasn't nothing to her. So, perhaps she's been down that road before. She's accessed that type of magic, chaos magic, or the powers of an Infinity Stone somehow. And yeah, so that was really interesting. So we have that whole scene. We have her killing her mom too, and taking her brooch. We get, kind of revelation to where she got her brooch or her necklace from, which was her
Mm-hmm.
mother's.
Mm-hmm.
And then we finally see it go back to present day, where we have Wanda in Agatha's basement. And Wanda's basically, she's like, "All right, where are my children? Because you about to get messed up, chick." But of course that doesn't work. That doesn't go anywhere because Agatha has these runes up, which basically block you from using your magic. And so Wanda can't use her magic. She can't use her powers inside of Agatha's basement, which is really kind of weird when you consider the end scene. But we'll talk about that, I guess, when we get there. But it was just weird. But we get a lot of revelations in these couple of scenes with Agatha and Wanda. Agatha is basically questioning Wanda. You know,
Yeah.
how did you do this? You got, it took me so long to get all these powers, and you basically you basically running around. You got magic running for miles. You got your magic on autopilot. Like you got the VIP plan. I need, and I've been doing this for a minute. What you mean? You got dudes miles away from here with their own made up
Yep.
storylines and families. Like, and I'm having trouble just mind controlling a few people. But sister, I ain't, I ain't happy about what you doing, basically. And
Yeah.
so, Agatha being this jealous little witch, we can finally call her a little witch because she is a little witch. But
Hmm.
this little witch, man, Agatha, wow, man. So she's basically questioning Wanda, like, how did you do this? How did you do that? And we see her use we see her grab an insect. She casts a transmutation spell on it, causing it to turn into uh, oh no, she mind controls it first. She uses a mind control spell, inflicts the bug on Wanda, and then she takes the bug and she turns into a bird. And that flies
Hmm.
around. Then she grabs that and she throws it. I think she changes its form again. And then she throws it to the
Mr.
rabbit.
Scratch.
Yeah, Mr. Scratch. So I mean, this is obviously not a regular rabbit. And even the rabbit, it talks
Hmm.
to her at one point where it says, I know, I know. So
Yeah.
what I'm thinking, that's probably like, okay, Pietro has captured Monica or something like that. I don't know, maybe something to that extent. Maybe something else, but I'm trying to figure out who in the world this rabbit is, and um because at this point, I don't think this can't be some type of regular human creature, because if a human were turned into a rabbit, first of all, rabbits are herbivores, so they don't even eat. Um, they don't even eat meat. They don't eat other animals. So for this rabbit to eat that bug would mean either that this whatever was transmuted into this rabbit was either a carnivorous creature, maybe some sort of demonic creature, or I don't know. That's the only thing I could think of at this point. Did you have any thoughts about that when you saw it?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was really strange. It reminded me of, I mean, first of all, like, when Agatha said, she said the secret word. She said mind control. We had been saying that the whole
Mm-hmm.
time, and then she made it very clear, and still making it very clear that she is mind controlling people, and that and that Wanda is mind controlling people. And then when she asks her how, Wanda still does not know how, and certainly at this point in the episode she still doesn't know how. And in terms of
Yeah.
the the rabbit, even when it was a little comedic line when she was in the in the beginning of the scene when Agatha was like listening to the rabbit, but at the end when we see it being a little bit more sentient and sort of responding to the use of her magic, like he was ready. Nobody in any TV show has ever seen a rabbit like so quickly open its mouth to receive a bug that is being sent to it to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So it reminded me of the stork, I wanted to say, from earlier on in the season with Wanda's magic, that the stork did not, um, it didn't respond to her magic. But here we have this, senior scratch that is, like you said, carnivorous. So yeah, it's definitely like a Halloween Town kind of cat.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have to see, what its true form is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
like it's probably Mephisto, as we were saying, or whoever she's working for.
Hmm.
There's definitely some kind of bond that's probably a master and servant bond. And we just have to see who's the master and who's the servant, I guess.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Dang, yeah, that's got me thinking now. I gotta think through this. Um, but yeah, okay, so we have all right, so we got basically that happening, Agatha going through all these antics and stuff, and then basically saying, because you don't want to give me no answers, I'm just gonna get them myself. So
Yes, quickly. I also wanted to say, how we were talking about, like, just last week we were talking about how, she went to the edge of the town during the Halloween episode, and she knew what was going on, and she was even so specific talking about all of these things. As such a jealous person, like she's actually pretty honest about her own insecurities. She went out to
yeah.
the outskirts of town and she saw that although people were glitching, they the illusion in which they were living was still, they were still completely bound by that.
Mm.
And you notice all these little things about her when she was not being honest, when she was still hiding herself a lot. So I thought that was really cool. And then also just, with the actress, just her change in her body language. Obviously, Catherine Hahn, I think that's her name. She's been doing this for decades now. So, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
But like this woman is obviously a witch because because now that she's like showing off her runes and everything, she can't stop, waving her hands and, being very flamboyant about how she's moving. I'm like, oh my God, this is making me dizzy. Can you put your hands down, please? Ugh.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought that up. Catherine, I absolutely love Catherine Hahn. Like, I need to look up other projects she's been in or that she's in right now or will be in the future, because her performance is honestly just, it's blown me away. It's blown everybody away. I think like all the fans of the show. It's been
Oh,
absolutely phenomenal. Like, she needs, like, I think almost everybody in the show need an award. Like Vision, like Elizabeth Olsen, Catherine Hahn, even Hayward, just for being such a jerk. Especially O'Darcy, and don't get me started with Wu. Like, they this, it's like the acting has just been superb. So absolutely no complaints there. Um, and they still got to tell me what happened to my girl Darcy. Yo, they can't be leaving Darcy. I think we're going to get a big surprise with Darcy, or maybe a little surprise, but she's going to come into play somehow. So
yeah,
I'm
we
look.
also didn't see Monica Rambeau in this episode either. You touched on that a
Yeah.
little bit. Like, did Pietro have? And then also another really funny line. She was like, Agatha was like, in that fake Pietro. I guess I'm gonna call him Pietro.
Pietro.
She talked a little bit about how she brought him into the bubble, and it still wasn't specific enough to say whether she brought him from like another timeline or not. I mean, I guess maybe she can, because it's not the same thing as, spontaneous creation, as
Hmm.
she said that Wanda was doing. But she still wasn't specific enough to tell us where she got him, where she got that face.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she obviously mind controlled him in order to, manipulate him into finding some truth from Wanda, but that didn't work. And yeah,
Yeah.
like, did he capture, Monica Rambeau or not? Because it seems like she actually has more power than Pietro does. Like, where is she this episode? So I think it's going to
Yeah.
be really crazy when she enters the finale next episode.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you brought up the discussion on where Agatha got Pietro, because now at least we know to some extent that Agatha's powers, as robust as they are, for lack of a better word, they pale in comparison to Wanda's power.
Mm-hmm,
So I
mm-hmm.
mean, and basically the only advantage Agatha has over anybody at this point is their ignorance, because they
Yeah.
don't know about magic, they don't know about its rules and stuff. But when it
Mm-hmm,
comes down to just raw power, she's outnumbered here. Like Wanda by herself, it was seen, would be able to demolish Agatha, because the
mm-hmm,
fact that Agatha couldn't bring her brother from a different continent
mm-hmm. That's right.
means that is limited. So I personally don't think that she would have the power to pull somebody from another dimension at this point,
Gotcha.
because if she can't even pull somebody from another continent, I think it would be kind of, impossible for her to pull somebody from a different dimension. So maybe, I don't know, that opens the door to some questions, some theories. Like maybe this version of, that is really a hard one though, because we know that, and you know what? I think what they now, this is just speculation, but perhaps when Thanos traveled in Endgame, when Thanos from the past traveled to this timeline, perhaps that did something where it brought certain individuals through to our timeline, because I'm thinking when they snapped, those Infinity Stones weren't from our timeline.
That's right.
So perhaps it brought back into existence, and it's just mere speculation, but perhaps it brought to our dimension some individuals who didn't belong here, which is kind of like a throwback. It makes me think of I don't know if you've seen it, but Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Where
Yeah.
they had, yeah, they had the Spider-Man from the different timelines and whatever. But that movie was awesome anyway. That's a whole nother conversation. But
But yeah,
yeah.
I think that was one of the major things about Endgame. It was like, okay, so how is Thanos just going to go from one timeline to another without there not being any collateral damage? Except for the Avengers, being able to kill Thanos.
Right.
Which is just really funny MCU talk. um, really funny Marvel talk. But honestly, the distinction that I want to make between fake Pietro and real Pietro this timeline is that, like, it's as Agatha was saying, like, real Pietro is dead, and his body is full with holes, and she was talking about being unable to not do spontaneous creation, and then also, as she had been saying earlier on in the series, not being able to resurrect. So the thing
Yeah.
is that this guy, whoever this fake Pietro is, like, he is a oh, but he's not alive, because she looked at him and she saw a dead face. Wanda did, but then again, it could be because she was all messed up and she's like, maybe this is my brother. But oh, right, I'm remembering that he's gone. So just as Agatha said, like, her grief kind of, broke her mind in certain places. So either way, I like not knowing. I think that's a really great point, and I guess we're just we're just gonna have to see. We might not even see fake Pietro again, and it all of these whatever
Mm.
loose ends that they don't tie up in this episode, I mean next episode, is definitely gonna appear in whatever they do next. We might even see something in the new Falcon and Super Soldier, whatever that is, that's coming out.
Yeah.
We'll find out anyway. We're patient.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. So then we have it moving on into basically Agatha opens a door. She uses Wanda's a strand of Wanda's hair and throws it at her magical door, basically open up a doorway into Wanda's memories. Um
Mhm.
and we see it start from Wanda's childhood when they're in I think Sokovia, and her dad had just come home. He's obviously a DVD seller. It's crazy because I'm like, man, I thought I only see that in Baltimore. Like, people on
Oh,
the corner
please.
be like, I got DVDs,
Selling
got
bootlegs.
watches, DVDs and CDs. Oh man, this dude hustling DVDs, man, and basically obviously having some trouble selling. He tells his wife, don't worry, honey, I'll sell them tomorrow, yada yada yada. And we see that the family is having movie night, and they actually use these American DVDs in order to teach themselves English, which
Mhm.
gives us kind of a
Sorry, the
kind of,
VHS.
what you say.
VHS.
What Oh, these were VHS.
Yes,
These
yes, because
weren't
it's the
DVDs.
no, no, no. Remember, it was like the 80s.
Oh, okay. I thought they were VHS, but somebody else was saying DVD. I'm like, wait a minute. I don't think these. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, these are cassettes. These are VH. These are cassette tapes, VHS. So my man out here hustling VHS, and cassettes and whatever, and so they're having movie night, and we find out that this is why Wanda's accent basically comes and goes as Agatha try to
Hmm.
try to carry her early in the episode, because they were basically trying to learn English or whatnot, but from these sitcoms and whatnot. And Wanda's in love with sitcoms. She always watches sitcoms like the Dick Van Dyke Show, and I Dream of. We saw Bewitched, I think, was in this case of VHS tapes, and basically all the shows that basically the WandaVision episodes have been parodying off of Malcolm in the Middle, Bewitched, I
Yeah, we
Dream of
called
Jeannie,
it.
yeah, Dick Van Dyke Show, Modern Family, all that stuff. Well, not Modern Family. I'm pretty sure she probably didn't see that back then, but after that, she sees that. But and Yeah, so we have them having movie night, and Wanda choosing Dick Van Dyke Show, and they're watching this sitcom, and then there's an explosion, and we see just Wanda and Pietro are the survivors, and they're just standing there, with oh yeah, we also see the episode of the Dick Van Dyke Show where the husband and the wife are in their separate beds, which was, you know, like in the earlier episode of WandaVision where her and Vision were in the separate beds and whatnot. Because I was like,
Uh-huh.
yo, that is so ridiculous. Like that doesn't even make sense. But I guess that's how it was back then, whatever. But
It
so
was.
then, what'd you say?
I said it was. It was.
Yeah, trying to be family friendly. Where now it's like you don't even need a bed. It's just anywhere.
No, in real life too. In real life too. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But then you have this explosion, and Wanda and Pietro are the survivors, and there's a missile that's landed in front of them, and we see it flashing with the red light, and it says Stark Industries on it, and it's making the same beeping sound that we saw in the commercial a few episodes back where they had the toaster, and they were waiting
Uh-huh.
for it to go off, so that was a call back to that. And
Uh-huh.
we see Wanda reaching out to the missile and saying something, but basically Agatha comments saying that, oh, so you used a probability hex to stop the missile from exploding. And this was interesting because I guess they're basically saying now that Wanda did have powers before encountering the Infinity Stone, but the Infinity Stone just amplified those powers, which is really interesting because I guess Wanda was just using these powers subconsciously or unknowingly because we never find out if she was formally taught in any way or if her mother practiced the dark witchery or whatever. They don't say, so I'm guessing she just kind of subconsciously just had these abilities from wherever, and maybe they'll dig into that a little bit, but
Mhm.
Agatha says, you use the probability hex, yada yada yada. Then I don't know. Did you have any more comments on that scene before we moved on to the next scene?
Oh yes, I have
Oh,
lots. So,
oh yeah.
so let's see.
Feel free to cut me
So
off
I
anytime, by the way, if when I'm rambling.
okay. So it broke my heart when the happy family came together, and the mom looks outside, and she sees war happening like right outside on the street, and it was just totally like, on the
Hmm.
one hand, like a sort of, you know um dissonance, cognitive dissonance. I was like, lady, you need to get your family out of here, but I also know that, like, this is a Soviet country and you have a lot of crazy stuff going on in it. They're not going to let you out. So I would just sort of like, and it was only like like a 7-minute scene or something, but there was just so much happening. And, the family was so beautiful. And I believed the father. I believed his
Mm.
promise to his wife that he was going to sell those DVDs the next day, those VHSs. And it,
Yeah.
it reminded me of, there was this episode in the TV show Orange is the New Black, where one of the women, who was from Russia, and she had fled Russia in the 80s, back in the
Mm.
70s or like in the early 80s, like her and her friends and like her boyfriend at the time, like a lot of people got together and put on Levi's, put on a whole bunch of American clothes, and just like, partied like Americans, which, we weren't supposed to do. And, she had friends who were hustling Levi jeans. So it just kind of reminded me, of those kinds of real things that happen. And you know, I'm a hater of Disney, for many reasons. So when they do things like that, smart things like that, I'm like, I'm like, you're not legitimate. Like I still don't, you know, um, I still think you really have to be critical of learning how to look at the world through the lens that Disney provides.
Yeah.
Um, but
Definitely.
so yeah, it broke my heart with the mom, and then of course when the raid happened, it was just so extreme. Obviously, this is a civilian apartment building, and when the whole Stark Industries rocket came, it just kind of left me a little disappointed when we didn't see. whether anything had actually happened. Maybe she just delayed it enough that after those 2 days, she and her brother were able to get out.
Mm.
But like, I almost need something like a little bit more to understand, Wanda's relationship with her magical abilities. Like, I mean, like, I thought that you got it from the Infinity Stone, which is the Reality Stone. So, you know, how is it possible? How is it possible that you're like genetically inclined to witchery?
Yeah,
you
I know,
know,
right?
so there was all of that, and it was so sad. And let's see, yeah, Agatha was still doing the Agatha thing, talking about how Pietro was really loud, and that was hilarious. And I think that's all I have. I mean, of course, the callback to the toaster oven. I actually think that you were saying that the rocket is a callback to the toaster oven, and for sure, I feel like the toaster oven from episode one is a callback, not only to that specific weapon of the Stark Industries, but also just to the reality of how you know. Weapons making companies end up making household products, and just how that happens. And then of course for Wanda herself, how this ended up being a bridge into her not even working for Hydra. I don't know how that whole thing happened, if it was willing or not, but she definitely caught somebody's attention at a point, when she and her brother started to come of age. And so yeah, it just it was we learned a lot in Wanda, just like Agatha. We learned a lot about her.
Yeah. You know, yeah, you are maybe you made me think about something. Perhaps this is when you said you were how you can just be born, inclined to witchery. Perhaps this is Kevin Feige's way of basically saying Wanda was born a mutant, you know. Maybe that's his way of,
Oh, okay,
you know.
okay. Say his name. What's his name, Magneto?
Magneto. Say no. Maybe because man, there was kind of a Magneto Easter egg now that I think about it. When they were in when they showed the scene where, well, I mean, it could be. I'm probably stretching, but like I always do. But it was this scene when they're in the basement and Agatha's talking about, didn't you see all my magical runes? And she looks at this one rune, and it looks like the letter M, but it's very reminiscent to the House of M
Yes,
symbol from the comics with Magneto and them. So
I was thinking that too. I was like, why does
yeah.
this look so familiar? Oh, whatever.
Yeah. So that could be a callback because I'm still not convinced that they're my boy Magneto, he better show up. That's all I'm saying. Like
They had better deliver.
they gotta give my boy Magneto. That's like my favorite mutant of all time. But yeah, so maybe that's the way of doing that. But yeah. You said a lot of good stuff, especially with like the whole portrayal of like family and these countries and stuff. You gotta always be a little leery of Disney, because
Mhm,
but
mhm.
all right, so it goes on to show Wanda in the Hydra facility. I'm glad you corrected me on that. Not a sword at this time, or shield or whatever, but Hydra, because they were kind of like the anti group that her and her brother joined in order kind of to, I guess, to become a part of the resistance
Uh-huh.
against like kind of American stuff and Stark Industries and all of that stuff. So we have them joining Hydra, and she, was basically an experiment volunteer for the, I guess at this time it was just called, I forget what it's called, but the scepter with the Mind Stone. And I don't know if there was like a special name for this scepter, but I don't remember if it was, but the scepter, and it contains the Mind Stone, and she walks into this room basically to be tested by and it's funny because they on the intercom and they don't mute the intercom, and the guy's basically like, well, basically no, none of these test subjects have survived, and he's like, dude,
Uh-huh.
shut up, like, like what are you doing, like.
Uh-huh.
And so anyway, she walks in, Wanda unafraid as always, and basically the stone actually comes out of the scepter and goes to her, and the blue casing vanishes, and we see its true color. We see that it's yellow, and
Uh-huh.
we see the stone basically responding to Wanda, whatever she is, and we see the image of like the Scarlet Witch floating, out of this yellow energy of the Mind Stone and basically entering into Wanda, and her collapsing on the floor. Of course, it didn't look like all of that from the doctor's perspective, but all of this is what we see from Wanda's perspective, and what happened through her eyes. To them, it probably just looked like some energy released and she collapsed. But from Wanda's perspective, she got chosen uh, by the Infinity Stone, which is just very it's very interesting because I don't know, and maybe I just have a choppy memory, but I don't know, have we ever seen any of the stones being sentient in this kind of way before?
What do you mean? Like choosing someone?
Yeah, like the stone having a mind of its own, like a stone actually getting up and like moving and doing stuff like this, or responding to a person or something like that.
I definitely feel like it's happened.
Oh,
Definitely. I feel like, Doctor Strange and the person, who was a woman in the movies but was a man in the comics, and, whatever that character's name was, like they were like, it's already chosen you. This is why I'm coming to you, and this is why I'm telling you that, I have to
oh,
train you, stuff like that. Yeah. I feel like it has happened, and it really wouldn't it would definitely be in line with the properties of the Infinity Stones.
okay. Wow,
Hmm.
that's really interesting. That's really
Yeah, and
interesting.
then also what you were saying about like the casing disappearing, like it reminded me of that scene in Guardians of the Galaxy where they're with the Collector, and we see this is like the first time that we see an Infinity Stone in a really intriguing way, and we're supposed to wonder what it is and what it means, and he has it like in this cubicle casing, and it was blue at that time. So,
Oh,
it just, right. I was just thinking that when you said that, and I'm like, what is it? That's exactly what happened. She called it out of the casing, and it, revealed its true self to her. And of course, we have all of these questions about why the Mind Stone, was so receptive to Wanda. And obviously we see the properties of the Mind Stone in that like it reveals whatever in regarding the mind and all that, just how they all have their own properties. The Reality Stone, which is her stone. So I just thought it was really cute, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, so there's a lot more to her and Vision, than we think of just, sentient being and kind of animated sentient being, being able to fall in love. Like it's something about their magic, I suppose.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Some really crazy stuff going on with these stones. I'm still,
Yeah.
I wonder if this could be a setup for something because, as far as we know, I mean, it could be that after the Infinity Stones were destroyed, they weren't really destroyed, but their energy kind of just entered into the beings that kind of, I guess, possessed them to some extent. Okay, so we would have what that would mean. The powers of the Mind Stone are in Wanda. Now you hold on. You said something about the Reality Stone. Now, because I mean, we see in this scene that she got her powers from the Mind Stone. Did she also get some sort of powers or something from the Reality Stone?
Well, you see, this is how you and I are interpreting it differently, because it's just as you were saying, she looked up in the Mind Stone, she saw herself, her future self, or something like that, coming out of it, and it went into her. So you saw that as her receiving her powers, but for me, I just saw that as her receiving um, the what is appointed for her, kind of.
Mm.
Um, I'm still of the interpretation that she received her powers from the Reality Stone, but obviously because she had already had that inclination to witchery, as we called it earlier, she was able to approach it, and then because of who she was, it approached her. But yeah, we're just interpreting it differently.
Oh snaps! Now I gotta go back and watch it because the Reality Stone is what the red. His real color is red.
I believe, yes, that's the red one. Hmm.
And when did she come into contact with that in the movies?
I don't know. We don't know. All we saw was just
Oh,
like her and Pietro just kind of just messing stuff up, and we saw her, moving stuff around with this with like red glowing hands, and it wasn't
oh,
until the Thanos wars that we started to know which Avengers had which stones, and
okay.
people who weren't Avengers, obviously like Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, now I gotta do my Infinity Stone research. That's
That's
definitely.
right. There's one
Uh,
other thing I wanted to say about that scene. It
yeah.
was it was oh yes. So when so it was just as you were saying, the sort of the camera rollback, the security camera rollback of what happened in that cell. It cut everything after the casing, opened around the Infinity Stone, and then we just see her on the floor. And as you were saying, they can't see it, but this is what happened for her, and we're seeing it from her perspective. And it just reminded me of all of these cut scenes that we're seeing in the final cut of every episode when Darcy and Wu, were watching them as they happened. We saw from Wanda's perspective all of these strange things happening in the hex that aren't supposed to happen, thanks to Agatha, right? And not only her, there were sword artifacts that were coming in that weren't supposed to be there, and it didn't make it into the final cut. So it just reminded me of that, and also really makes me wonder about what is there has to be some more significance now that we've seen that about Wanda and this whole sitcom thing than just it being a way for her to um, you know be more for her to access what a lot of different parts of the world, whether like in her heart, right, and then also learning a foreign language and all of this stuff. Like I feel like there has to be a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right, so then we get a scene of Wanda at the Avengers Tower, and she's sitting in the room watching Malcolm in the Middle, and you know, and Vision, I guess, is yo. I used to love that show. That made me when I was like, yo, I gotta go back and watch Malcolm in the Middle now, cause
That's how
that
I felt too. It was so funny. It was so good.
yo, it was yo, that was like one of my favorite shows. But so I guess Vision is on the other side of the wall, and Wanda can sense him. So she said, basically come on in or whatever. What do you want? And then Vision is, basically there to comfort her after the loss of her brother.
Hmm.
And Vision, she invites him to sit down on the bed, and they're watching the show, and he really doesn't get it, and she starts, just kind of, talking and stuff and explaining stuff. And yo, Vision dropped this line. I was like, okay, that's kind of biblical though. Like, I'm sorry, yo. Vision dropped some truth. He said, cause she was saying like how she just all that around her is just chaos and emptiness or whatever. And he said, well, it can't all be bad because grieving. What is grieving if it's not love persevering? I was like,
Yes, yes,
oh, yo.
love persevering. Yes, the endurance.
Yo, that was so powerful. But that's so real though, because like who hasn't lost someone, and like the feeling of that loss is basically like, yeah, that person is still valuable. Yes, I still have love for them, and this is
Mhm.
not just sadness and grief. Is actually my love for them persevering through the hurt of them not physically being here with me. So it's like, man, I was like, yo, that is just so real. And it's coming from Vision, who at this point doesn't even fully understand human emotions, but he understands something like that. I was like, yo, Vision,
Yes,
you just got 1,000 cool points for that. Like
I know,
that.
right? From that one line, it was really sweet.
Yeah, yo,
And
that.
then I definitely feel like it's gonna. I personally, like, in my whole fan heart, like, I hope that conversation is gonna be something, because obviously Wanda didn't remember that conversation, and I hope that she's gonna hold on to it now that she's remembered a little bit, because this has been what her whole story, in the MCU has been about, her dealing with her grief and not being able to kind of realize the gift, the the change, how the love had changed, but it did not disappear and it didn't just go nowhere, you know.
Yeah.
Um, maybe she'll start to see it that way, and be less hard on herself, and just hurt a little less.
Yo, that would be good though. That would be hard if they had like a scene where she snaps back to her senses and she remembers like all the things that were said to her by Vision. By
Mhm.
the, yo, that would be powerful. Die. And if we get like a montage of I don't know if this will play into it. If we get like a montage of the scene where Tony basically like sacrifices his life to yo, they just gotta bring everything full circle,
Bring
yo.
bring it back.
It gotta come back. That would be so hard. But dang, what was I about to say? Oh yeah, we'll talk about it a little later because I really hope Vision. I think they're setting up a possible Vision return, Vision resurrection, but
Me
we'll
too.
talk about that. Yeah, that would be legit. But
Mhm. One last thing, I feel like as you were saying, like he's not even really aware of what emotions are yet, and he himself had said that he didn't have anyone to lose. He had
mm.
always been alone and had no one to lose. Um, so I'm just like, bro, like how can you do this? Like it like how, And I've been joking a lot about how about how the fake vision in the holo in the hexagram, doesn't actually have the mind stone. And, we'll speculate about that a little bit later on. Um, but here he did. And again, it just makes me wonder about like what is the connection, I mean, obviously Thanos, he told us how all the stones belong together. He wanted to use the stones for death. But perhaps life can come out of them, coming together. Maybe something like that. I didn't mean to wax poetic so much, but that was a really beautiful scene, especially without a
Yeah.
kiss or anything, and even without like they haven't even fallen in love yet. This is just two like a real soul and like a friggin' android that's supposed to be evil Ultron, but it's not. Like just kind of relating to each other. So it was
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, it was definitely powerful and beautiful. That was legit. That was legit. So all right, so we get Agatha was that when she shed her little fake tear in that scene, yo? I was legit laughing for like 2 minutes. I was like, yo, I hate but love Catherine Hart. I was like, yo, I hate her. Cause she legit shed a tear. I was like, you shedding tears, but you really don't got no remorse. I mean, you probably
Uh-huh.
do, but you don't. You like evil. So I was like, yo, I freaking hate this girl. I freaking love her though. Like, oh my gosh, she's such a well written character, yo. Um, but okay, so we get okay, so then we get the scene where Wanda is showing up at a sword facility, modern day, and she's looking for the Vision's body. We see her, coming to the front desk. They don't want to let her in. Then they get a call from Hayward basically saying let her in. She goes to his office, and this is where we get no different Hayward. Yo, this guy is such a freaking jerk, man. I mean, yo, he needs like a jerk license or something, like just a professional jerk, man, because he just makes me sick, yo. But she basically says, where is Vision? I know you have him. And we just find that Hayward ain't wasted no time at
Hmm.
putting my boy Vision on the laboratory table. I mean, they
Hmm.
got his head over here, his arms over there, part of his leg over here. He's like, oh yeah, you want to see him? Yeah, you can see every part of him. Like, you go ahead and like, you don't understand. He ain't a person. He just a thing. Like,
Mhm.
and I'm like, yo, if Wanda don't snap, I'ma be surprised, yo. But she didn't, yo. I was surprised, yo. She did, but he says, and then he got the nerve to say this line. She was like, I just want to bury him, and he basically said this line like, well, that's the problem, Wanda. He doesn't belong to you. I'm
Mhm.
like, bruh, hold
Mhm.
up, bruh. She just saved the universe, bro.
Yes.
She
Yes.
just like she saved your butt, your freaking behind, the whole world, the whole universe, and you ain't got no man. So that just sent her over the edge. She broke the glass. She floated down, and she just wanted to see her boo. But obviously he ain't there. She touched his head. She said, "I can't feel you. I can't sense you." And
Uh-huh.
I was like, "Dang, yo, why they had to?" I was like, "Yo, they got his, oh, they got his leg chopped off, his feet." I was like, "Yo, why they doing it to my boy Mission, yo?" Oh my god.
Yeah, it was so much. Honestly, yeah, we definitely saw that Hayward had always been Hayward. And, as you were saying, like she legit, she was a huge part in saving the whole universe after Thanos' snap. And that was a very complicated mission that they were on, and most of the Avengers weren't even supposed to know the details so that it could go right. And everybody played their part and it went right. And then Hayward, he just, she's like, I want to see my. Vision was supposed to be her husband, technically, he wasn't supposed to die twice. So
Yeah.
it's as Cody was saying last week, like she just wants to put his bones to rest, as it were, as is her right. And then instead of, allowing for her to put his bones to rest, he like showed her the autopsy while it was happening. That was just so extremely cruel. And then, as you said, to top it off, he never belonged to you. Okay, Mr. Sword Agency man, I get what you're saying. But again, like, where's the respect? Okay, obviously, there is none. Now we know for certain. So I just want to say, just going back a couple of episodes later, it's still amazing that she didn't have any of those men shoot, Hayward with her mind control. Like, wow. Um, you know, she's obviously practicing a lot more altruism than people give her credit for, including people like Hayward. So, anyways, that was really sad. And, you know, I just, and then lastly, I wanted to say, going back a couple of episodes also, that same episode, he was talking about how, oh, telling Monica, this is what happened. Here's the video. It's the proof, the full video, right? No, it's doctored. Okay. Um, the full video of her coming in and just storming in and taking his body. And oh, and by the way, she put the Mind Stone in and she put him back together. No, she did not. So that's what you get, Hayward. Now Monica has powers, and she's going to come for your title.
Yeah.
So yeah, that really blew my mind more than anything else. How that was kind of a long standing lie going on in the plot. Now we know for certain that she did not put him back together with her magic and with some random mind stone from however that's out in the ether, and put it back together in him. Like, that did not happen. It was actually a lot more tragic than that, and it came from her heart. So what happened, Justin? What happened next?
Well, hold on, no, we gotta pause, cause yo,
You gonna
this
pause?
Hayward dude, no, cause you said a lot, and that was good. Like, we gotta think about this more, cause Hayward, yo, this dude gonna be a problem, and that's why I said what I said. I can legit see him being like the what is the name of that guy, yo, in X-Men, the one who just hated the mutants, who wanted to eradicate the mutants. I can see him becoming that figure, unless they get rid of him now. This, I want to call him the N word. This dude gonna be
Oh.
a problem, because he getting on my nerves, yo. Like, Hayward is, and like you said, I didn't even think about that, but that was a Dr. Ville. Like, they did some intense editing on
Mm-hmm.
that video just to make it look like that. I'm like, yo, that's, bruh,
Yeah.
you went to this extent to justify. And what's crazier though is that it's not going to stop. Uh, it's not going to stop with Vision. I believe if he could, he wants to dissect Wanda too.
Oh, absolutely.
This
Yes.
is sick, yo, cause he want her power. I'm like, yo, Hayward, yo, hold on, we got,
Speaking of, he
yo,
called them being, Wanda and Pietro. He said that they were radicalized, but it's like, sir, you're calling the pot kettle, tea, black, whatever
Right.
whatever that idiom is, and we can see that happening in you. Totally, totally. That's why I like it. Every time, he turns around with his collar up and he's just like I'm like, this guy is a troublemaker.
Yo, you need to get rid of Hayward, yo. Hayward has gone wayward, yo. He
Yeah.
has gone wayward. We gonna have to, man. We gonna need Agatha to handle him. But I think White Vision, probably gonna end up killing him. I mean, that's just my hope. Probably not, because I think they're setting him up for be bigger and better. But if they
Uh-huh.
do, I wouldn't complain. So
Me neither.
so then we get a shot of okay, so then Wanda, basically, she leaves the facility, she gets in her car, and in her passenger seat is a card from Vision, or rather a property deed inside of this envelope, that contains basically the property deed for the property that I guess he intended to build into a house, um, for him and Wanda to grow old in. It says, inside a little heart, to grow old in. And
Uh-huh.
she leaves the facility. She drives to Westview, and then we get a shot of some of our characters from Westview. I don't know if that was Herb, because they did show a black man, but
Uh-huh.
honestly, he don't look like Herb.
He had a lot less hair and he was older. I think it was Herb, though. I do.
Oh, wow, he really don't look like Herb. But okay, that's just it. So we see Herb, and then we see the other guy. Uh, is that Herb? I'm really looking at. I don't see it. It might be. It might be. Oh, you know what? Yeah, because she can make people look younger. That's right. Oh, snap. That's interesting. But anyway, yeah. So we see Herb. We see the other guy who was at the town meeting, the neighborhood watch meeting. The guy with the mustache. I forgot his name. And then we see, let's see who else we see. Oh, we see whatchamacallit's wife, Vision's boss's wife, Mrs. Hart.
Right.
We
And
see
we see the
Mrs.
mailman
Yeah. Oh, we see the mailman. Now,
delivering
what
pizzas.
was he, a mailman? Oh, he was delivering pizzas.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yo, I love, yo. Okay, so maybe he wasn't some evil secret character that I thought all this time. Huh. Okay. He just always seems suspicious to me, though. Dang, I got
He
I
was
got.
so,
What'd you say?
I say he was so quiet. I don't blame you.
I gotta apologize to the mailman. I'm sorry, mailman. But then we see, then we see Wanda pull up to this property, and she goes to where a house, the foundation of a house is, or the remains of a house, I guess, that maybe used to be. And
Uh-huh.
she walks into this property, and she opens the letter again, and she reads, to grow old in. And this is supposed to be where they were going to build a house, where they were, well, I can't say start a family, because I don't think that was going to happen. But basically to grow old in and all of that stuff, enjoy life. And Wanda
Uh-huh.
just has an emotional breakdown. I mean, but now, I actually, I kind of relate more to what Cody was saying now, because she's honestly been through so much. Like, for somebody to take basically your husband and to do that to them, and not even ask for your consent, or at least send you a notice or something like that, and to treat you that way, for you to have
Uh-huh.
lost your parents, you lost your brother, and like, this is just, I mean,
And
why?
and it's not as if the other Avengers were ever, overly friendly to her. We
Mm.
never saw anything like that happen, and she was okay with that. She just needed her man. She was fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking, because like, because I'm just wondering, like, where are her friends? Where, like, even like, okay, so who do we have in the Avengers, the other female Avengers, that could have kind of at least consoled her? I mean, yeah, we had that whole girl power scene where you had what? You had Shuri from Black Panther, you had Captain Marvel, you had Iron Man's boo. Her, I could see her at least reaching out to Wanda, having lost her husband.
Uh-huh.
But maybe they just weren't cool like that. But this really is tragic, because like, she doesn't have no friends reaching out to her. Like, the government is against her. Like, this
Uh-huh.
is really heartbreaking. So I mean, she's going through all these memories, and then that's when it happens. Like she just snapped. Like she can't take it no more. She just has literally an emotional meltdown, and all of her inward desires, and I guess it's in a sense she's almost having a psychological breakdown, whereas she's almost recluding into her childhood, because as we were talking about, like her childhood memories of all those sitcoms and all those good times with family, she's kind of retreating into that because she can't deal with what's happened. And so she's, all of her emotions, all of her desires basically explode through Westview, through her magic energy. And she creates the hex dimension. She creates this alternate reality where she gets all of her heart's desires, and we see the houses change, we see the cars change, we see the people changing, we see everything just changing in Westview instantaneously. And then we see not just her red energy, but we see this yellow energy start to pour out from her very center, from her heart,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and begins to turn into the shape of Vision. And she formed. You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy though. And we gotta bring this up. We usually don't talk this way, but we got to, like, ain't it ironic that the scriptures say that God reached into the rib of the man and out of him formed the woman, and now we kind of see like the reverse of that. I don't
Yeah.
think it's intentionally like twisted. I just think that in the sense that it's really emotional, it's really powerful, like emotionally, but like out of her heart, out of the inside of her, is being formed. This
Yeah.
man being formed, Vision. It's just kind of, it's a really nice callback, I think. But you see it forming Vision, which has me thinking a couple of things, and you can chime in because I know you probably got a lot to share on this point because there's so much here. But it kind of makes me think, like we were saying earlier, that perhaps the Mind Stone really does still exist, but it just exists in Wanda. Perhaps, because when you think of an Infinity Stone, you think of infinity. So how much power does Infinity Stone have? Well,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps infinite power. So it can exist infinitesimally, if that's even a word, inside of both any number of vessels. It can extend its power into any number of vessels, so not just in a stone but also in Wanda. And so perhaps Wanda has become a sort of vessel for this power of the Infinity Stone, and perhaps that's why we saw that yellow energy manifesting out of her in that way. Perhaps it is the Mind Stone um
Mm-hmm.
manifesting in some way. But anyway, I'm a pause right here because I got so much. But what are you thinking? I know you got something.
So yeah, I totally think that at the very least it's a memory of her connection to the Mind Stone, that existed before she met Vision, before Vision became Vision through the Mind Stone. And yeah, I that's, it goes back to this question that we've been asking, this whole season, like, what happened to the Infinity Stones after Tony, did the snap. He did the snap, that brought the vanished back. Um, did the Infinity Stones become these just disparate atoms, and they just exist in all of these different places throughout the multiple galaxies in the MCU universe? Um, or are they kind of grounded at home, wherever they were originally found? And obviously, the Mind Stone was on Earth, and the Reality Stone was also. Um, what happened to them afterward? We still have not gotten an explicit answer to that. And the
Yeah.
more that we see Wanda, um, and I'm sure we'll see that with other characters too in the next, installments that Marvel does with the TV shows, and in whatever movies come out next. We're gonna see these characters, um, uh, calling back to their connections to these stones, and hopefully, we will get an answer. But right now, I feel all we can do is speculate on, on the one hand, like you said, perhaps she put the Mind Stone back together, because she was so intimately knowledgeable of it, and that's how she was able to make Vision. But I, on the other hand, kind of feel like how Agatha feels, that like all of this is an illusion, and even just going back to how Vision was unable to leave the hex, and that it was breaking him down in a molecular level. I feel that it's just not just, because the whole thing is really beautiful, but it was her intimate, connection to the Mind Stone that she was able to bring back this illusion of who Vision was, and he's only Vision by the Mind Stone. I still think the Mind Stone is not has not been found and pieced back together and placed into a real husk of what was supposed to be Ultron that becomes Vision.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's yeah, I mean that's the thing. And that's why honestly, um yeah, I think that they're gonna be bringing my boy Viz back, but we're gonna have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. But all right, so we have, she brings Vision back, she looks over and surprised to have him, and then it kind of goes back to the 50s black and white version, and they sit down on the couch, and we get basically what was the opening episode of episode one. And then, okay, we get this scene where it's basically in kind of like an auditorium, and Agatha sitting in the bleachers giving a sitting ovation to
Yeah.
Wanda, clap, 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 well done, blah, blah, blah. So that's how you did it. And then, all right, so this next part is the part that kind of confused me. Because if Agatha had Wanda basically bound in her basement, um, to where she couldn't use her magic, I was kind of confused about the next scene where we see Agatha vanish and she's outside and Wanda runs outside. I was just thinking about this, and maybe you have some answers or thoughts about this, but why would she leave the basement? Why would she release the children? Why didn't she just keep the children locked up and keep Wanda bound in the basement? Why is she all of a sudden outside in the street? That was kind of, I was like, that's kind of stupid to me.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I didn't think about it like that because I was just so horrified of how she was choking those children. Um, that just really, I was like, this is really crazy,
Yeah.
He sucks. But yeah, it's really, in terms of a tactical kind of thing, it's really not smart of her to do that because she had just been telling her that, you can't use your own magic here, with among my runes, and now they're outside of the basement. So thinking about it, it's probably just maybe a trap for her to use her powers, to
Hmm.
end up, you know, not doing something good to the kids, maybe because she obviously is
Oh.
using the kids to not only to manipulate the kids their own power for herself, but also for her to break, Wanda, especially now that she knows a little bit more about her story and why she has the things that she herself lacks and is insecure about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like it's got to be something really tragic like that, and I hope I'm wrong. But otherwise, why would she do the final showdown out in the middle of the street?
Right.
And we also didn't see any of the neighborhood people in the street at that time, so that's also interesting.
Mm. Oh, snaps. It's about to get real.
You're
No,
about to get your action that you wanted, right?
I better be. It better be. It better be giving me something, or we gonna have to have a talk with Feige. But no, no, no. That's an excellent point. She once wanted to use her powers, and oh my gosh, you can't have her kill Wanda's children. No, not on camera. No, don't do that to us, Marvel. Come on, it's still Disney. I know it's plus, but it's still Disney. Come on,
Yeah,
y'all. I have no
like,
kill no children. Come on. But
her.
what'd you say?
I said her own kids, and then maybe, like, again, like, we're definitely gonna find out who the father is because we've been
Yeah.
speculating, like, who who is the father of these children? How can it be Vision if he, like, doesn't even have a digestive system, as Jam was saying? So I think it's also part of that. That's where my mind went, when I watched that episode. I was like, here we go. We're gonna see, what the deal is with these children one way or another. And that's certainly, either Agatha knows and it's you know I'm not going to go on a limb. I'm not going to say anything,
No,
but
what you about to
either
say? No,
Agatha
go. You
knows,
might
like,
as well go on a limb.
well, I was going to say, maybe like Mr. Scratch is like, maybe he, like, they did some kind of magic thing, and as you were saying, all of the plants and the other objects that she placed in her house, like in with all the hexes and who knows,
Yeah.
Mr. Scratch is male and he probably isn't actually, a rabbit. Like he's probably not even totally transmuted into a rabbit and probably, maybe she has his some of his cells somewhere. Like I don't know. Something crazy. So
Oh,
maybe Agatha knows.
that.
And then also maybe she doesn't know, but either way, she's
Yeah.
about to find out whatever she wants. She is has never been most primed to get it as she has been at this point in the series. I
Yeah.
feel.
Oh man,
Poor kids, man.
this witch. Yeah, you kids better unleash your powers or something, cause at this point, it's about to get real. But yeah,
Oh,
so
and then also, how last week I was saying how I love when Wanda does her no. Like she did
yeah.
it this episode. She did
Oh, she
it, which
did.
is she did when they were in the basement and she found out that the children were in danger. She was like, no. And
Oh snap.
Agatha was yes. I was like, oh no, she's gonna kick your butt. She delivered the no to you.
Yo, I thought you know what's crazy though? For a little while, I thought that Agatha had fed the children to Mr. Scratch.
Oh man,
Yo, I
right?
until you let she let Wanda hear them scream or whatever. I was like, yo, chill. That would be terrible. But all right, so we got Agatha floating outside in her little witch garb, choking the children, a little child abuser, and basically
Uh-huh.
saying, you have no idea how dangerous you are. You have this chaos magic power, and you've been using it to make breakfast for dinner. You know,
She's so jealous.
yo, she's so jealous, yo. And then basically saying you're supposed to be a myth, a being capable of spontaneous creation, etc., etc. You're the Scarlet Witch. Boom, the name drop everybody's been waiting for. So I guess,
Mhm.
and I don't know if this was a thing in the comics. I think this may be new, but correct us in the comments. If we're wrong about this, just let us know. But in the comics, I'd always thought that Scarlet Witch was just kind of like a nickname, but it seems that they're turning it into like a mythos of being like some great being, maybe known by the witches, who was thought to be like a legendary creature or legendary being, or that only comes around maybe every once a million years or something. The Scarlet Witch, the great and powerful, whatever. So it
Mhm.
seemed like that's what they're turning the Scarlet Witch into, where I thought it was just like kind of like her nickname, her little mutant name, but perhaps it
Mhm.
was more. Again, I'm not a super comic kid, but um, yeah. So we had that, and then we go to this post credit scene, which is what we wanted to talk about with
Oh
our
wait, let me
boy.
say a little bit about what you were just saying about Scarlet Witch.
Okay.
Um, I wanted to mention that when Wanda was introduced to the MCU, through her whole dealings with Hydra, her and her brother dealings with Hydra, and they were introduced to the Avengers. They were talking about how she has like chaotic energy. I mean, chaos magic.
Oh.
It's just a little thing that I remember because I also remembered it in Infinity War and in Endgame, but especially in Infinity War when they were paying attention to her because they were like, we need a lot of power. It can't just be Captain America, and Thor, wielding these really awesome weapons. It's got to be all of us. And they start to learn a little bit more about the stones, and they're like, it's the stones. And they were talking about that the chaos magic, and I'm like recalling some other conversations between Tony and Doctor Strange about that. Like, this is not the first time where they have labeled the kind of magic that she uses as chaos magic. At first, they said that's why it's red, and then they were like, she's like the reality stone like chose her. So I I'm just really glad that they brought that out because I just oh yes, I remember why I'm thinking about that because when Endgame was happening before it came out, everybody was speculating like, oh man, who's gonna be the one? Who's the strongest Avenger? Everybody was talking about it. Is it Captain America? Is it Thor? Is it Wanda? And then Endgame happened, and everybody was like, "It's Wanda." Like, she's the strongest one. It's that chaos magic man. Hopefully, we're
Yeah.
gonna learn more about what that is. And so now here we are, learning a little bit more about what that is. And in terms of the whole Scarlet Witch thing, I myself not being a comic book reader either, um, you know, I thought it was a nickname that she got graduated up to when she made herself really known, probably like on the Earth, but we'll probably see throughout the universe too if they want to go intergalactic. As
Yeah.
Monica Rambeau has wanted to. We saw that for the first couple of episodes, and and so if they were to make this into a whole witch thing, and hopefully they'll make it into like a mutant thing, if that's the route that they want to go, they definitely gave us the feeling that, or the sense that this was a myth that had been long talked about by all of these practitioners of magic, light and dark, if you want to talk about it that way. And here she is, and they it, like, if it really is that deep, and if they really do want to make the storytelling that tight, they have to do something. Either give us the mutants, or give us something else that's equally interesting, because you've already told us that Wanda, that her power doesn't only come from the reality stone, and that it just exists within her, and the reality stone amplified that. So we need to know what it means for her to be the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah. Yup. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They dropping a lot of lore, so they gonna have
Yeah.
to deliver. But yeah. So yeah, that leads us to the post-credit scene where we have the the sword camp, and Hayward is basically, yeah, they tell Hayward, we're ready for the launch, and we see them cut to the scene where they basically have reconstructed the Vision's body, but it's all white. And from what I understand, there was some sort of white Vision in the comics who was like soulless and didn't have the personality of Vision, but I'll have to look more into it. But anyway, what I thought about this, as soon as I saw this, the thought I got was that Vision is going to come back, because now, and I think you touched on this earlier, the reason why Vision can't leave the Hex is because he does not have a tangible body. But now that they've created this tangible body, in a sense, whatever, for this white Vision, I think what's going to happen is once he enters the Hex, that's going to create, or maybe once they fight or something, but basically what I believe is that the Vision Wanda has created is going to enter into the casing that Sword has created, and we're going to get Vision coming back to life. And he may even be a Vision that's more powerful. Cause it kind of gives me a thought of, you remember Gandalf the Gray, and then he became Gandalf the White.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
when he got resurrected, in a sense. So I think that we're going to have something similar there, where we have Vision basically get his tangible body back. And yeah, he gets uh he comes back. But we saw that they were able to power it with a fragment of energy from the drone that Wanda had put her magic on and thrown back out of the Hex, which now we see was not a great idea, because you just gave these dudes basically what is essentially something more powerful than a nuclear reactor, and is capable of creating sentient beings like this, which is just incredibly dangerous. So unless they recover this drone back again, who knows? God only knows what other types of things we're going to get out of Sword. We might get Sentinels. We might get all types of stuff from them. So this is this is a problem. Hayward is a problem, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's so brilliant, about the Predator drone. It just really speaks to how powerful Wanda is, and that all of these people kind of coming at her trying to mess up her fun, it's not for nothing. And, you know, what if there's something there, like when the hex is no longer a hex, when it's no longer just this contained zone, and it disappears, like, what is the remains, sort of like nuclear radiation, like,
Yeah.
and we already see that there's a lot of radiation involved in this. What is going to remain and what's the effect that it's going to have? And then also, which is just like, problematic, like in an interesting way, like great for conflict. Of course, in the last episode when everything went down and she, or I guess the one before that, and she expanded the bubble, I was like, my mind was like, oh my gosh, what if like the bubble expands to the whole world and everything
Yeah.
is a WandaVision? There's really
Yeah.
no reason to say that no one could push her to that point where she wouldn't even try to make it happen, or at least like a whole country being a WandaVision, like, and it's just bordered on the waters, like, like King, not King Kong, like Godzilla or something, like really, really big mythos, kind of stuff. She's definitely capable of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and it just speaks to her power, like in a fan kind of way, if you're on her side and you want her to be able to be okay, and not be destructive for herself or to anybody else. Like, hey, you know let's just keep making breakfast for the husband and the kids, let's do that. And I think with the whole vision thing, like, like we said earlier, as I mentioned to you, I did not go past the credits, so I
Oh yeah.
didn't know I didn't know there was a post credit scene. So I thought it was really funny that Marvel is doing the whole Marvel thing with the TV shows now. As they said they would, they were like, it's still gonna be Marvel, and I'm like, oh wow, you really meant it. But I thankfully, thanks to you, Justin, I was able to see the post credit, and obviously Hayward problematic, um, and it just kind of gives more credence to this idea that he is going to put himself into a hole of hatred that's gonna be really bad for everybody else, and he's gonna make some really bad things happen because he's gonna be losing because he's a loser, and he can't, he can't handle it.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with the vision, I mean, I think that's really brilliant. It totally reminds me of Grey Gandalf, becoming White Gandalf. And I think Vision deserves something like that, that would definitely put him into a just, legends. He would be like a legend at that point if he isn't already, they're like celebrities now. They're like marginally appreciated. But I think, with something like that, it would kind of prove his worth, I guess, like in a fantastical way. And I think also, just with him being such an altruistic character, that no one really had any reason to have problems with. Like, I think he kind of deserves something like that, since he definitely doesn't have powers right now. And I think it's a really positive spin that you're taking on this whole, you know not real, this white vision. Because as I've been, pointing out, that, we know that he was originally meant to be the casing for Ultron. Um, and it was only because of the Mind Stone that he was able to gain sentience and actually like a conscience. And he was actually really kind once he started to, gain some knowledge about emotions. And that probably has to do between, the connections between the stones. As I was saying before, with Wanda being with the Reality Stone having chosen her, she has some connection to the Mind Stone. Either way, that one scene at the Avengers base tower, it wasn't only for us to look at Wanda, but it was also for us to look at Vision. And it's just really profound, what he was able to do for himself. If we didn't get that sense before earlier on in the MCU, we definitely get that now. And if he comes out on top with this, evil doppelganger, it will be really cool. And but there's gonna be a lot of fighting next episode. A lot of fighting.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. I love what you said about Vision. He can definitely become a legend. Like he definitely has. He's earned a lot of respect at this point. And I was about to say something because you made me think of something in regards to Vision. I hope it comes back to my memory. About the Vision. I don't know, but I just love Vision, and he's had a really good character arc because a lot of people were saying before, he didn't really have any personality or anything like that, and I think this whole WandaVision is kind of giving him some of that, and
Yeah.
so now he's definitely an interesting character. Dang, I'm so mad I lost my thought, but anyway, yeah, I thought this episode, if nothing else, it gave us a lot of substance as far as character development, at least, and backstory. Um, I mean, so many characters have been fleshed out. Honestly, you can make a spin-off series about almost any of the characters or organizations in this series. Like even if they did a Jimmy Woo and Darcy kind of like their organization spin-off, I would absolutely watch it. It would just be enjoyable. If you did a Monica Rambeau spin-off, I would watch it. If you did a Hayward spin-off about the evil things that Shield is up to, I would watch it. If you did like almost any character you pull out of this series has been so developed and fleshed out. If you did Wanda's Kids about how they become like the Young Avengers or something like that, I would
Uh-huh.
watch it. Agatha's series, I will watch like and I think that's to just say how, at least in my opinion, I know people have mixed feelings about this, but I honestly think the storytelling in WandaVision has been superb and is a really good callback to just the MCU so far, the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far, of how well they've done. Because honestly, I believe that these are characters that you care about, and that's what I think is one of the biggest divides between DC nowadays and Marvel, is that DC has a lot of great content that they could develop, but when it comes on screen, it just comes off kind of empty. They really rushed the whole Justice League thing. You're trying to put all these great and wonderful characters together that have a lot of backstory and a lot of history, but you haven't made us care about them enough to the point where when they show up on screen together, it's meaningful and it's impactful. So I honestly think that this episode really just got me to appreciate the storytelling and the character development excuse me, in the MCU up to this point, where I'm like, almost even the characters that don't have powers are really interesting to me. So I just say
Mhm.
hats off to Feige and the story team. It's really been solid, I think.
Yeah, me too. I, I couldn't agree more. I think they're doing a good job. I think it's also because they're able to take their time. You know, it's a half-hour TV show, and we have 9 episodes each, so that's a lot more than you usually get with just one movie. And then, of course, Marvel has always been able to take their time throughout their movies compared to DC. Um, so I'm reluctant to say hats off to you, Disney. And that's sort of one of my, I guess, my life principles.
Oh snap!
But yeah, Kevin Feige and the whole team, they're doing a good job. And as I've said before, I didn't even want to watch WandaVision. I was like, I would be glad if MCU finished at Endgame, so I can move on
Yeah,
with my life and do some other things. But here we are, and I have no complaints. They're doing a really great job.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, so that kind of brings us to a wrap for WandaVision episode 8. But please, everyone, let us know your thoughts in the comments. What did you think of this episode? Who's your favorite character? And are you excited for the finale? What are you most excited for? Do you think we're going to get an epic cameo? They keep having rumors floating around about this really, really awesome cameo. Who do you think it's going to be? Let us know in the comments below. But it has been a pleasure wrapping it up with you, Amber. We held this joint down. Just the
Yes,
two
we
of
did.
us. We held this joint down. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited for where we go from here. But anyway, thank you all for tuning in to Seriously Amazing. And remember, keep being amazing. Seriously amazing. Peace, y'all.
Peace.